Okay, students, so let's get started with IGCSE Physics, May June 2024, paper 4, variant 3, 1 hour 15 minutes का paper है ये. Let's start with the first question. Let's zoom in a bit. अच्छा जी, क्या लिखा हुआ है? A ball of mass 130 gram is launched from the ground at an initial velocity of this. Okay, तो ये आपकी initial velocity यू हो गई. Perfect. It decelerates until it comes to rest. मतलब आपकी final velocity zero हो गई. At a height h above the ground. You have to define deceleration. बेटा deceleration क्या होती है? Rate of decrease of velocity. Deceleration क्या होती है? Rate of decrease of velocity. Simple as that. The acceleration of free fall is 9.8. Show that the time taken for the ball to reach a height of h is 1.4 seconds. How will we do that? Acceleration is 9.8, yeah, 9.8 meters per second square. What is your change in velocity? You are going from a velocity of 14 to a velocity of 0. आपकी change in velocity क्या होगी बेटा? 14. Can you calculate the time? Yes, acceleration is equals to change in velocity over time. Time is equals to change in velocity over acceleration. Change in velocity क्या है? 14. Acceleration क्या है? 9.8. You calculate the time, that comes out to be 1.4 seconds. Simple. Let's further move ahead. Calculate h. Ignore the effects of air resistance. For this, I will have to draw a diagram. Let's say this is your ground, and you are launching a ball with a velocity of 14 meters per second. क्या होगा? As the ball reaches a height of h, it comes to rest. तो let's say हम कह देते हैं ये height h है. At this point, your velocity becomes zero. Perfect. Now let's say this was your starting point. Beta, can you realize at the start your gravitational potential energy is zero? Why? Because your height from the ground is zero. Let's say this is your ending point. Can you realize at the ending point your kinetic energy is zero because velocity is zero? You only have gravitational potential energy. So what will you say? You will say the kinetic energy at the start is equals to the gravitational potential energy at the end. Kinetic energy at the start क्या है? 1 upon 2 mv square. What is gravitational potential energy at the end? mgh. क्या होगा? m and m cancelled out. You have to calculate height. Height किस तरह निकालोगे? Velocity square divided by 2 is equals to gh. g को divide कर दो. Velocity square divided by 2g is equals to your h. Can you calculate the value of h? Yes or no? बिल्कुल निकाल सकते. Your velocity was 14. Just input those values. H is equals to 14 का square divided by 2 into 9.8. Since we were not given the value of g, हम 9.8 से काम चला रहे हैं. So 14 का square divided by 2 into 9.8. Your height comes out to be 10 meters. Easy. Exact 10 meters. Not more, not less than that. Okay, so the ball is dropped from a tall building. अच्छा जी, अब यहाँ पे रिवर्स सिनेरियो हो रहा है. हो ये रहा है कि let me make it. The ball is now being dropped from a tall building. बॉल को अब हम ड्रॉप कर रहे हैं from a tall building like this. ठीक है, ये बॉल ड्रॉप हो रही है from a tall building. Describe and explain the motion of the ball as it falls. Consider the effect of air resistance in your answer. बेटा जब भी आपकी बॉल टॉल बिल्डिंग से फॉल कर रही है एंड एयर रेजिस्टेंस इज कंसिडर्ड, किस सिनेरियो की बात हो रही है? टर्मिनल वेलोसिटी. जब भी आपकी बॉल एक टॉल बिल्डिंग से ड्रॉप हो रही है एंड यू आर कंसिडरिंग एयर रेजिस्टेंस, कौन से सिनेरियो की बात हो रही है बेटा? टर्मिनल वेलोसिटी. हाउ विल यू स्टार्ट योर आंसर? You will say initially, or you will say as the ball starts to fall, the acceleration is equal to 9.8 meters per second square, as the only force acting on the ball is the weight. On the ball is the weight. बेटा इनिशियली जब आपने बॉल को छोड़ा है तो सिर्फ वेट की फोर्स एक्ट कर रही होगी बॉल पे. दैट्स व्हाई द एक्सेलरेशन ऑफ द बॉल इज 9.8. व्हाट विल फर्दर हैपन? एज द बॉल gains speed, gains velocity कह लो, gains velocity, the force of air resistance increases, air resistance increases, causing the resultant force to decrease, causing the resultant force to decrease, and acceleration decreases. Lastly क्या करोगे? Eventually the force of air resistance. Now you can basically write it in a short format as well. एक दो points आप skip भी कर सकते हो, but I am writing the complete answer so that you know कि क्या क्या चीज़ें important है. Eventually the force of air resistance equals weight. Resultant force becomes zero. Becomes zero. And the ball reaches a constant speed. Simple as that, nothing complicated here. इससे आसान और क्या होगा. चलो, let's further move ahead. Figure 2.1 shows a solar powered traffic warning light. Perfect. The energy from solar cell is stored in a battery. Name the energy stored in the battery. भाई बैटरी में कौन सी एनर्जी स्टोर होती है? केमिकल एनर्जी. बैटरी में कौन सी एनर्जी स्टोर होती है? केमिकल energy. Simple as that. The two lights in figure 2.1 are connected in parallel. State one advantage of a parallel connection in a lighting circuit. बेटा एक advantage क्या होगा of connecting the lights in a parallel circuit? If one light malfunctions, अगर एक लाइट खराब हो जाती है, the circuit keeps on working. ठीक है. If one lamp या one light, lamp का है, light का है. If one light malfunctions, the circuit keeps on working. The circuit keeps on working. या फिर आप ये कहोगे कि the other lamp remains lit. अब next part पे आ जाओ, C पे आ जाओ. The efficiency of the solar cell is 22%. The power supplied to the lights by the cell is this. Okay, this is what the power supplied to the lights by the cell is this. This is your power output. Okay. State what is meant by 22% efficiency. अब हमने बताना है 22% efficiency का मतलब क्या है. So you can say that the total या the useful output energy is 22% of the total energy input. Easy peasy. Calculate the solar power input to the solar cell. You have to calculate the power input. How are you going to do that? Efficiency is equals to power output divided by the power input into 100. Efficiency क्या है बेटा? 22. Power output क्या है? 15. We have to calculate power input multiplied by 100. Can you calculate the power input? Yes. Power input is equals to 15 divided by 22 into 100. बताओ power input क्या आएगी भाई? 15 divided by 22 into 100. Power input comes out to be 68 watts. This is your power input. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Nothing complicated here. State two advantages of using a solar cell to power the traffic warning lights in figure 2.1 compared to using a mains इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कह रहा है कि सोलर सेल से ट्रैफिक लाइट्स जलाने का फायदा बताओ कंपेयर टू मेन्स इलेक्ट्रिसिटी तो आप क्या कह सकते हो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इफ यू आर यूजिंग अ सोलर सेल देयर इज नो नीड फॉर केबल्स देयर इज नो नीड फॉर केबल्स टू कनेक्ट टू द मेन सप्लाई हेंस दिस कैन बी यूज्ड इन रिमोट एरियाज तो इसको लिख लो देयर इज नो नीड फॉर cables to connect to the main supply. Hence, it can be used in remote areas. It can be used in remote areas. दूर दराज के इलाकों में विलेजेस में गांव में ये सोलर सेल वाली ट्रैफिक लाइट ज़्यादा अच्छी रहेगी. Also, what is the second advantage? This light is not affected by power cuts in the main supply. सिंपल मेन सप्लाई में अगर पावर कट्स हो रहे हैं दिस ट्रैफिक लाइट वुडंट बी अफेक्टेड बाय दैट लेट्स फर्दर मूव अहेड आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा सो लेट्स सी दिस क्वेश्चन ये अच्छा लग रहा है सवाल लेट्स सी दिस क्या लिखा हुआ है भाई ओके फिगर 3.1 शोज टू चिल्ड्रन बैलेंस्ड ऑन अ सीसॉ बैलेंस का मतलब क्या होता है बेटा एंटी क्लॉकवाइज मूवमेंट इज इक्वल्स टू क्लॉकवाइज मूवमेंट अ सीसॉ इज अ लेंथ ऑफ वुड व्हिच रोटेट्स अबाउट अ सेंट्रल पॉइंट ठीक है this is child A, this is child B. Currently, they are balanced. Child B moves 0.05 meter further away from the pivot. अच्छा थोड़ा सा इसको देखते हैं बेटा अभी इस सिनेरियो में दे आर बैलेंस्ड ओके दिस चाइल्ड ए इज क्रिएटिंग एन एंटी क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट इट इज रोटेटिंग द सी सॉ इन ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन टू द क्लॉक 450 न्यूटन की फोर्स है 1.6 का डिस्टेंस है कैन यू कैलकुलेट द एंटी क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट 450 इंटू 1.6 एंटी क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट क्या हो गया 720 न्यूटन मीटर क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट क्या हो जाएगा 900 इंटू 0.8 दिस कम्स आउट टू बी 720 न्यूटन मीटर in the current situation clockwise is equals to anti-clockwise the seesaw is balanced but now let's say child B is moved 0.05 meter further away from the pivot सर इसका मतलब क्या है इसका मतलब ये है that child B is now somewhere here getting an additional distance of 0.05 meters. Can you now realize that the clockwise movements will increase? बेटा आप clockwise movement क्या हो जाएंगे? The force remains same 900 multiplied by what? 0.8 plus an additional distance of 0.05. Can you calculate this answer? The clockwise movement comes out to be 765 Newton meter. Can you realize that the clockwise movements are much greater compared to the anti-clockwise movement? ठीक है. Hence, the answer to I, why the seesaw rotates clockwise. So you will say the clockwise movements become greater or larger compared to the anti-clockwise movements. You will say clockwise movements clockwise movements are larger compared to the anti-clockwise movements anti-clockwise movements simple as that Let's further move ahead. Child A puts on a backpack and the seesaw now balances again. तो इसका मतलब क्या होगा? Anti clockwise moment will be equal to clockwise again. Calculate the mass of the backpack. Okay. So ये जो child A है उसने एक backpack पहन लिया of mass m. This will create an additional force of what? Mass into gravitational field strength. What will your new anti-clockwise become? नया एंटी क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट क्या बन जाएगा? 450 न्यूटन प्लस द फोर्स ऑफ एम जी ड्यू टू द बैकपैक multiplied by the distance of 1.6. Can I now equate anti-clockwise and clockwise moments? बेटा ये जो ग्रीन में लिखे हुए हैं एंटी क्लॉकवाइज एंड क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट, जो नए एंटी क्लॉकवाइज और नए क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट से क्या मैं उन्हें इक्वेट कर सकता हूँ? बिल्कुल. एंटी क्लॉकवाइज इज इक्वल टू क्लॉकवाइज. 450 प्लस एम जी इंटू 1.6. क्लॉकवाइज मोमेंट क्या है? 765. परफेक्ट. कैन यू कैलकुलेट द मास? हाँ जी, मास निकाला जा सकता है बिल्कुल. 450 प्लस एम जी इज इक्वल टू 765 डिवाइडेड बाई 1.6. निकालो जरा 765 डिवाइडेड बाई 1.6, क्या आ रहा है आंसर? 478. 450 प्लस एम जी इज इक्वल टू वॉट? 478. एम जी इज इक्वल टू वॉट? 478 minus 450. mg is equals to 28. Now, beta, whenever we are not given the value of g, what do we take the value of g as? 9.8. 28. Can you calculate the mass? 28 divided by 9.8. बताओ क्या आंसर आ रहा है? Yes, what is your answer coming out to be? 2.9 kgs is your answer of mass. Simple. Let's further move ahead. आगे बढ़ते हैं. The concrete floor under the seesaw is replaced with a rubber floor. Okay. A child falls from the seesaw and experience an impulse when they hit the floor. You have to define impulse. भाई आपने impulse define करना है. What will you say? Impulse is the product of force multiplied by the time for which the force is applied. Impulse is the product of force and the time for which force is applied. Simple. Explain how the rubber floor induces, sorry, how the rubber floor reduces injury to the child. ये जो रबड़ का फ्लोर है ये इंजरी किस तरह रिड्यूस कर रहा है? यूज आइडियाज अबाउट इम्पल्स, फोर्स एंड मोमेंटम एंड टाइम इन योर आंसर. देखो, let's create some floors. Now let's say you have a concrete floor, and then let's say you have a rubber floor. First of all, you will tell the examiner that resultant force is equals to what? Resultant force is equals to change in momentum over change in time. The value of change in momentum on the concrete floor and the value of change in momentum on the rubber floor will remain constant. बेटा दोनों फ्लोर्स पे चेंज इन मोमेंटम तो कांस्टेंट रहेगा. However, what will be the difference? Rubber floor पे your change in time or the time taken for the collision will be greater for the rubber floor. Hence, the force applied on the rubber floor will be less. This is the entire logic. This is how you will write the answer. First of all, you will say resultant force is equal to change in momentum over change in time. Since the momentum is constant, the rubber flow takes a larger time of collision. The resultant force on the rubber flow decreases. That's why rubber flow reduces the energy, reduces the injury. Sorry. So first of all, you will say, you will start your answer like this: the resultant force. I am writing it in a small handwriting so that I can fit it within 4 lines. The resultant force is the rate of change of momentum. The change in momentum, the change in momentum for both surfaces remains same. However, however, the rubber floor, the rubber floor takes a larger time for collision या फिर the rubber floor, हाँ इस तरह कह लो, the rubber floor takes a larger time for collision. However, the rubber floor takes a longer time for collision. Hence, the resultant force due to the rubber floor decreases. This reduces injury. Simple as that. Let's zoom out a bit. चलो जी आगे बढ़ते हैं. Figure 4.1 shows a stainless steel saucepan being heated on an electric cooker. The saucepan contains water. अच्छा जी यहाँ पे एक water है. State what happens to the water molecules as the temperature increase. Temperature increase होगा तो क्या होगा? Kinetic energy of molecules increase. Kinetic energy of water molecules क्या करेगी? Increase कर जाएगी सब. The sauce contains, ठीक है, the saucepan contains 250 cm cube of water. This is your volume. The specific heat capacity of water is this. This is your C. The density of water is this. You have to calculate the mass of water. How will you do that? Mass is equals to density into volume. Density की वैल्यू क्या है बेटा? 1000. Volume की वैल्यू क्या है? 250. But you have to now realize a very simple fact here. कैन यू रियलाइज वॉल्यूम किस में है? सीएम क्यूब में है. कैन यू रियलाइज डेंसिटी किस में है? मीटर क्यूब में है. We will have to make the unit same. We will have to convert centimeter cube into meter cube. Sir, how can we do that? How exactly can we do that? Very simple conversion. If you convert centimeter into meter, you multiply it by 10 raised to the power of minus 2. If you convert centimeter square into meter square, what do? You multiply it by 10 raised to the power of minus 2 ka square, that is multiply by 10 raised to the power of minus 4. If you convert centimeter cube to meter cube, you will multiply it by what? 10 raised to the power of minus 2 power 3, 10 raised to the power of minus 6. Can you calculate the answer of mass? The mass comes out to be 0.25 kg. Simple. Now you have to calculate the energy required to increase the temperature from 20 to 65. How will you do that? Q is equals to mc delta T. मास की वैल्यू क्या है? 0.25. स्पेसिफिक हीट कैपेसिटी की वैल्यू क्या है? 4200. व्हाट इज योर फाइनल टेम्परेचर? 65. इनिशियल टेम्परेचर क्या है? 20. कैन यू कैलकुलेट एनर्जी भाई? यस इजी. 0.25 into 4200 into 65 minus 20. What does your answer comes out to be? 47,000 joules. This is your answer of thermal energy. Simple as that. Nothing complicated here. आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा. Let's further move ahead. अच्छा, the heater supplies power to heat the water in 39 seconds. ठीक है. A student measures that the time taken to heat the water is 115 seconds. अच्छा, इन रियलिटी जो आपका टाइम लग रहा है वो बहुत ज़्यादा लग रहा है कंपेयर टू योर एक्चुअल कैलकुलेशंस. Suggest why the actual time taken to heat the water is longer. Assume that the student takes accurate measurements. बेटा क्या होता है whenever you are doing a heating का experiment, what happens? Some heat is lost to the surrounding. You will say thermal energy is lost to the surrounding as well, is lost to the surroundings. Simple. आगे बढ़ते हैं. The stainless steel saucepan is replaced with an aluminum saucepan of the same mass. It contains the same volume of water. The specific heat capacity of stainless steel is 500 joules per kg. The specific heat capacity of aluminum is 890 joules per kg. Explain how an aluminum saucepan will affect the time taken to heat the water. Beta, first of all, can you see that the specific heat capacity of aluminum is larger? That means aluminum will take a greater amount of energy for the same temperature rise. Hence, aluminum saucepan takes larger to heat the water, takes longer amount of time to heat the water. So, how will you frame your answer? You will say the specific heat capacity of aluminum is much greater, yeah, is greater compared to the specific heat capacity of stainless steel. Hence, इसके आगे क्या लिखोगे? Hence, aluminum requires a greater amount of energy for same temperature rise. Easy. इसके आगे क्या लिखोगे? This causes the time taken to heat the water to increase. Simple as that, nothing complicated here. आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा. अच्छा जी, ये क्या है? Figure 5.1 shows two containers each filled with hot water. Okay. The outer surface of the metal container is hot. Perfect. Explain how electrons transfer thermal energy through the metal of the container. हमने बताना है कि electrons किस तरह thermal energy transfer करते हैं through the metal of the container. What will you say? Electrons hit with hot molecules. या electrons क्या करते हैं? Electrons hit with molecules of the hot water and gain energy. तो you will say first point क्या लिखोगे? Electrons या delocalized electrons, a better word, delocalized electrons hit with what? Delocalized electrons hit, yeah, collide will be a better word, I guess, collide with the molecules of hot water, with the molecules of hot water and gain energy. What will be your second key point? What will be your second key point? हाँ जी, second key point क्या होगा? These delocalized electrons move through the metal. These delocalized electrons move through the metal. Simple. What will further happen? These electrons hit with distant molecules. अब क्या करेंगे? Electrons will collide with the remote molecules or distant molecules to transfer energy to the molecules. These delocalized electrons collide with distant molecules कह लो, particles कह लो. These delocalized electrons hit with distant molecules, atoms, particles, whatever you want to say, and transfer energy to them. आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा. Let's further move ahead. The outer surface of the non-metal container is much cooler than the outer surface of the metal container. Explain why a non-metal conducts thermal energy less than a metal. Simple सी बात है, non-metal thermal energy क्यों less conduct करते हैं? Because they don't have free electrons. Because they don't have free electrons. Simple as that. Explain in terms of particle why gases are poor thermal conductors compared to non-metal solids. We have to explain why gases are poor thermal conductors compared to non-metal solids. How will you tell that? हाँ, gases क्यों poor thermal conductors हैं compared to solids? Because in gases, the particles are further apart, are further apart. Hence, the collision frequency is less. Hence, there are fewer collisions of particles. Simple. And let's further move ahead. आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा. Now, figure 6.1 shows a thin converging lens used to produce a magnified image of an object AB. Perfect. Explain the meaning of the terms principal focus and focal length. अच्छा जी, आपने principal focus और focal length का मतलब बताना है. What will you say? Rays parallel to principal axis. Rays parallel to the principal axis pass through the focal, pass through the principal focus after hitting the lens. Rays parallel to the principal axis pass through the principal focus after hitting the lens. Perfect. What is your focal length? Distance between optical center, optical center and principal focus. That is known as your focal length. On figure 6.1, draw the magnified image of AB. Show your working. अच्छा जी, आपने AB की magnified image बनानी है. How will you do that? First of all, you will bring a line that is passing through the optical center like this. Then you will make a line that is parallel to the principal axis like this. It will pass through the focal point like this. Can you realize both these rays are diverging? बेटा ये दोनों rays diverging है. We cannot cause diverging rays to meet in the forward direction. तो हम क्या करेंगे? इन्हें backward extend कर देंगे like this. We extend them in the backward direction like this. Simple. The point where the two rays meet give rise to your image I. यहाँ पे arrow बना दो भाई, image आएगा. Simple. This is how you do things. जब भी आपकी फॉरवर्ड डायरेक्शन में रेज डाइवर्ज कर रही है, व्हाट डू? You extend it backwards and they meet at a point behind the lens. This is your image. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. कुछ भी हमने यहाँ पे difficult नहीं किया. Let's further move ahead. Okay. Figure 7.1 shows two charged metal plates. X marks the position of the center of the spaces between the plates. ठीक है, ये X between में है. Positively charged plate ऊपर है, negatively charged plate नीचे. On figure 7.1, draw at least 4 field lines to show the pattern and the direction of the electric field between the two charged plates. बेटा parallel plates के बीच में हमेशा किस तरह की field lines बनती थी? 1 second. हमेशा if you have a parallel plate, how will your field lines look? Straight lines emerging from the positive going into the negative like this. हमने कितनी lines बनानी है? 4. How many marks for that? 2. Let's quickly do that. From positive to, oh, from positive to negative. इस तरह से. Positive to negative. Let's draw some lines here as well. Positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to. Just connect the charges, honestly. Positive to negative. Perfect. Okay, what else do we have here? Describe the effect of a negatively charged particle placed at x. बेटा अगर x पे मैं कोई negatively charged particle place कर दूं, what will happen? It will get attracted towards the top side or the positively charged plate. अब क्या कहोगे? The negative charge particle gets attracted towards the positively charged plate. तो इसको लिख देते हैं. It gets attracted towards positively charged plate. Charged plate. Simple as that, nothing complicated. During a thunderstorm, an electric field is set up between a cloud and the ground. Charges on the cloud and on the ground are shown in figure 7.2. Perfect. The lightning shown in figure 7.2 discharges a current of this for a time period of this. You have to calculate the charge that flows from the cloud to the ground. Current is equals to charge over time. Current क्या है? 28,000. Charge ये आ गया. Time क्या आ गया? 0.0012. Can you calculate the charge? Yes, 28,000. 0.0012. Can you calculate the charge, bhai? Okay, so here your answer comes out to be 33.6 coulombs, rounded off till two significant figures. 34 coulombs is your answer. Okay, the lightning transfers 1.2 into 10 raised to the power of 8 joules of energy. You have to calculate the potential difference V. V is equals to work done over charge. What is your work done? 1.2 10 raised to the power of 8. Charge क्या था बेटा? 33.6. If I write this answer in a standard form, 3.6 10 raised to the power of 6 volts is your answer. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. Figure 8.1 shows images produced using two different medical scanning procedures. अच्छा ये अल्ट्रासाउंड से एक इमेज प्रोड्यूस हुई है, ये एक्सरे से प्रोड्यूस हुई है. डिफाइन अल्ट्रासाउंड. Sound waves, yeah, frequencies of sound greater than 20 kilohertz is known as ultrasound. Okay. Sound with a frequency greater than 20 kilohertz, with a frequency greater than 20 kilohertz. State how the speed of sound in liquid compares to the speed of sound in air. The speed of sound in liquid क्या होगी? Greater compared to the speed of sound in air. So you can say speed of sound in liquid is greater. Perfect. X-rays are part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Calculate the speed of X-rays in a vacuum. 3 into 10 is the power of 8 meters per second. State three similarities or difference between the use of ultrasound and X-rays in medical scanning procedures. अच्छा जी, आपने थ्री सिमिलैरिटीज या डिफरेंसेस बताने हैं between X-rays and ultrasound. First of all, you will say X-rays and ultrasounds are both used to examine internal body structures. Are both used to examine internal body structures. What will be your second key point? क्या लिखोगे secondly? You will say X-rays are radiations that harm the body. That harm the body. Whereas ultrasounds have no harmful effects. Ultrasounds have no harmful effects. Simple. Third point पे आ जाओ. Ultrasounds make use of reflected waves. However, X-rays make use of transmitted radiations. Transmitted radiations. Simple as that. Let's further move ahead. आगे बढ़ते हैं बेटा. अच्छा जी, अब क्या लिखा हुआ है? फिगर 9.1 shows a mobile phone, cell phone being charged on a wireless charging plate. Okay. When the charging plate is switched on, there is an alternating current in the primary coil. A secondary coil is in the mobile phone. Explain how a current is produced in the secondary coil. Current किस तरह produce होता है in a secondary coil? Let's see. You will say the alternating current. The alternating current in the primary coil. In the primary coil generates what? Generates a changing magnetic field. When this changing magnetic field cuts with the secondary coil, this generates a current in the secondary coil. When the changing magnetic field, when the changing magnetic field cuts with the secondary coil, with the secondary coil, it induces, yeah, it produces a current in the secondary coil. Simple. Easy peasy. Let's further move ahead. The maximum energy stored in the battery is this. Show that the maximum energy is this. You have to convert kilowatt hours into joules. Please, 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 for the love of God, remember this conversion. Whenever you have to convert kilowatt hours into joules, आप क्या करते हो? 3.6 into 10 is the power of 6 से multiply करते हो. 0.012 into 3.6, 10 is the power of 6. What does your joules comes out to be? 4.3, 10 is the power of 4 joules. What is this? This is the maximum energy stored in the battery. Perfect. The charging plate in figure 9.1 has a useful power output. Okay, power output of 15. Okay. The phone manufacturers claim that the battery can be charged to 50% in less than 30 minutes. Show that this claim is true. Okay, how will we show that this claim is true? So the maximum energy output is 4.3, 10 is the power of 4 joules. Let's say this is your 100% energy. If I want to calculate the 50% of E naught, yeah, energy output, how will I do that? 4.3, 10 is the power of 4 into 50 divided by 100. 50% of energy output क्या आ जाएगी? 2.15, 10 is the power of 4 joules is your energy output. Simple as that. Do you have the power output? Yes, 15. Let's calculate the time. Energy is equals to power into time. Energy की वैल्यू क्या है? 2.15, 10 is the power of 4. पावर यहाँ पे आ गया. टाइम हमें नहीं पता. What is the value of power? Power की value is 15. So let's substitute it here. 15 into time. 2.15, 10 is the power of 4 divided by 15 is equals to your value of time. Can you calculate time? Yep, 2.15, 10 is the power of 4 divided by 15. Time comes out to be 1433 seconds. Let's convert these seconds into minutes. अब कहाँ पे conversion करें? Okay, let's do one thing. Let's make this a little small. अच्छा जी. Now, how will you convert this? You will say 1433 divided by 60. कितने minutes बन रहे हैं ये? This comes out to be 24 minutes, which is less than 30 minutes. Hence, आपकी पूरी की पूरी बैटरी 50% से ज़्यादा चार्ज हो सकती है in less than 30 minutes. The claim is true. Perfect. चलो जी आगे बढ़ते हैं अब. Okay, let's see this. Leaks in underground water pipes are detected using radioactive tracers. Okay, we have studied this in theory. Figure 10.1 shows a radiation detector above a water pipe. Okay. Before the radioactive tracer is added to the water, the detector measures the background radiation above the pipe. The average background radiation is 26 counts per minute. Define background radiation. Radiation that is always present in the environment. Radiation that is always present in the environment. है ना? Radiation that is always present in the environment is your background radiation. Suggest one source of radiation that may cause a significant contribution to the background count rate. अच्छा जी बैकग्राउंड काउंट रेट को कौन सी सिग्निफिकेंट कंट्रीब्यूशन करती है कॉस्मिक रेज सिंपल एज दैट आगे बढ़ते हैं A radioactive tracer is added to water. The counter in figure 10.1 shows the count rate and counts per minute above the leak in water pipe. Determine the count due to the tracer. अच्छा जी ये आपकी रीडिंग आ रही है बट दिस ऑल्सो इंक्लूड्स बैकग्राउंड रेडिएशन दैट वाज 26 what will be the actual reading 382 minus 26 what does your answer comes out to be हाँ जी आंसर क्या आ रहा है बेटा 356 counts per minute simple let's further move ahead आगे बढ़ते हैं भाई suggest which radioactive emission alpha beta or gamma is suitable for detecting the leak in the water pipe we have studied beta particles are the most suitable why because alpha cannot penetrate cannot penetrate alpha particles cannot penetrate through the soil and reach the detector because alpha particles cannot penetrate through soil and reach detector और गामा रेडिएशंस का क्या होगा what will happen to gamma radiations gamma radiations will reach the detector regardless if the pipe is cracked or not gamma radiations will reach the डिटेक्टर मतलब गामा रेडिएशंस पूरी की पूरी रीच कर जाएंगी इट इजंट इफेक्टेड बाय द क्रैक विल रीच द डिटेक्टर regardless of the क्रैक इन द पाइप्स बेटा गामा रेडिएशन बहुत ओवर एफिशिएंट है अगर क्रैक हो ना हो उन्हें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता दे विल रीच द डिटेक्टर नो प्रॉब्लम इन दैट एक्सप्लेन बाय रेडियो एक्टिव आइसोटोप मस्ट नॉट हैव अ वेरी शॉर्ट हाफ लाइफ ये जो रेडियो एक्टिव आइसोटोप हम यूज़ करेंगे वाई डज इट नॉट हैव अ शॉर्ट हाफ लाइफ क्यों नहीं होनी चाहिए बिकॉज शॉर्ट हाफ लाइफ डजेंट अलाउ टाइम फॉर डिटेक्शन उसकी रेडियो एक्टिविटी की वैल्यू जो है फ़ौरन से ज़ीरो पे चली जाती है सो यू विल से शॉर्ट हाफ लाइफ डजेंट अलाउ टाइम फॉर detection as activity drops too low very quickly. सिंपल अब आगे आते हैं पार्ट टू पे एक्सप्लेन व्हाई द रेडियो एक्टिव आइसोटोप मस्ट नॉट हैव अ वेरी लॉन्ग हाफ लाइफ भाई रेडियो एक्टिव आइसोटोप की लॉन्ग हाफ लाइफ क्यों नहीं होनी चाहिए बिकॉज अ लॉन्ग हाफ लाइफ विल कंटामिनेट वाटर सप्लाई a long half life contaminates water supply. So I hope this paper was clear. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comments below.